is turning 4 and fearless, and we needed the perfect cake to go with his Harley Davidson motorcycle themed party. So if you want to learn exactly how to make this cake, follow along. To start this cake, I went ahead and filled and crumb coated as usual and got this in the freezer to chill while I prepared the rest of my buttercream. I went ahead and colored my orange buttercream and then used that buttercream with my white buttercream and my black chocolate ganache to fill my piping bags to use later on. Moving on, I got my cake out of the refrigerator to put my first layer of buttercream on the outside. You may notice that I left the little rim around the top of my cake when I stuck it back in the freezer, and I left this for a purpose. So later on when I go to put my third layer of buttercream, I want to be able to cut this off and get a nice straight edge. Once I was ready, I measured out my flags and I ended up doing 3 inches high by 4 inches wide, and I cut those out and set them aside to move on to the checkered pattern. This is when I used Google not to my advantage. I Googled how many boxes were on a flag like this, and there are 80 boxes. So I had to mark out all 80 of those to then later go back and paint. But I did not think about measuring those out evenly when I cut my rectangles to begin with, so I had to do a lot of math. Once my rectangles were cut out, I went ahead and measured out to make 80 boxes, and then using my knife, I just lightly pressed those lines into my piece of fondant. Now I just use my black paint, which is just black food coloring and a little bit of vodka, and mix that together, and I was able to use this to paint in each of my black boxes for my flag. At this point, I needed lunch. I needed a break. This took way longer than expected, so I went ahead and put the final coat of buttercream on my cake so that that could chill out while I took a little breather. Moving on to the Harley Davidson logo that is on the front of my cake, I took some black fondant and just rolled it out pretty thick. And then using just a piece of paper that I printed out and cut of the Harley Davidson logo, I laid this on top of my fondant and just held it down with my hand and then cut out my fondant around it. You may notice that I actually don't cut up against the paper. I printed this out, but the proportions were just a little bit off for what I wanted for my cake. So I just used it basically as a guide to know where I need to be cutting, but I could use what size I wanted. Once my plaque was cut out, I then took a little fondant tool and just ran a line around all of the sides basically. So I started in the middle with the rectangle and just marked out that rectangle, and then went around the outsides, meaning the top and bottom. After this was done, I took that same fondant tool and just really lightly marked out where I wanted to write happy birthday. And then after this, I just used another paint mixture, which is just food coloring and vodka, like I said, and painted my words and rim around this. At this point, I just took some of my black chocolate ganache that I previously put in my piping bags and piped the bottom border around my cake. I then placed my flags on my cake, making sure to leave enough room for my plaque in the middle. I ended up just using the piece of paper that I had previously cut out and just stuck it to my cake just to act as a little placeholder for my real plaque. After my flags are on, I went ahead and moved to the top and piped my top border with the same black chocolate ganache. And you may be wondering why I'm not putting the plaque on yet. And this is because it was just recently painted, so I needed to give it time to dry so that when I picked it up, all that paint wouldn't just come off on my hand or smear. So I set this aside to chill and then left my little plaque out to completely dry before I put it on my cake. And while these rested, I went ahead and moved on to my cupcakes. My cupcakes were super simple. I just used the buttercream that I had previously filled in my piping bags and piped little rosettes on each of my cupcakes, mixing the colors, and then went back with the same colors in sprinkles to mix and match those as well. Once my cupcakes were done, I put on my logo on the front, and then my cake was done. Okay, I think the cake turned out perfect. I think Hayes will love it, and I love that everyone can pick between chocolate and vanilla cupcakes for their little treat too. If you enjoyed learning how to make this cake, make sure to like and subscribe and ring the bell so we can change the world one cake at a time. Bye.